Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for another very special edition of WOWSA Live. This time, I'm the host, and Ned Denison is the guest. And we're going to talk about the new marathon swimming mentorship program that has now recently been developed. Can you explain a little bit?
Sure can. Thanks, Steve. We had a call with Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame members a few weeks ago, and Sue Geeston from Tasmania had an idea, which was, why don't we gather together a list of people who are willing to be mentors? It sounded like a good idea. We made a decision to make sure it wasn't necessarily associated with the Hall of Fame, which gave us a larger group. And this whole concept of mentoring has been around for a long time. And I want to distinguish between mentoring, coaching, training. So for those people who are in a swim program, who may be paying the coach privately to give them private stroke coaching, that's great. There are people who are offering training either in person or remotely, and people get paid for these things, and that's great as well. Mentoring is kind of like a big brother or a big sister. It's somebody you do not pay. It's typically somebody that has a few more years experience than you do, and they can help you to put a lens on things, look beyond your kind of daily, weekly training, help you debrief what's happening in your training. And I wanted to give you a couple of examples of mentoring. I was mentoring a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old swimmer who was going for the channel. His name is Owen O'Keefe. And as he got closer to really signing up for the English Channel, I ended up calling Nick Adams in England. And Nick had done the channel at age 16 a few years ago. So I had asked Nick, I said, look, this kid, Owen, he's been successful at everything he's ever done. I don't think he's ever failed at anything. Before the English Channel, should we engineer for him to fail something? Should we create a swim that he can't possibly do? And I remember Nick saying to me, no, Ned, he goes, that's his biggest strength. He thinks he's invincible rather. Your job is to keep him safe. I'll give you a couple of other examples. I had a mentor, I had two mentors, Colm O'Neill was one of them. I failed my first English Channel. And a week or so later, Colm called me up and we had a conversation. And he said to me, what are you going to do, Ned? I said, I don't really know. And he said, well, you've done the training. And he said, what do you mean? He goes, well, you've done the training. This is back when you didn't need 3 years to book an English Channel slot. And he said, you can train for another year or two, or you can have another go this year. And sure enough, I did that. And I got one more story for you. A friend of mine came back from one of these swimcation things. And she said, look, I met this woman. She thinks she's going to swim the English Channel, but she just isn't connected. She doesn't seem to know anything about it. So I contacted her. We had a FaceTime conversation, and I asked her some questions. How old are you? What's your swimming background? How fast are you? Why are you swimming the channel? What's your family situation? And what's your head like? Are you competitive every time you get next to somebody, or are you somebody who just swims for swimming? And so what I did is I said, well, look, I'm not your best mentor. Give me a day or two. And I contacted another woman who lived kind of 3 hours away in Florida. And Maureen agreed to mentor her. So they had a short conversation, and the woman literally drove 3 hours across Florida to buy lunch for Maureen. Maureen's a triple crowner, but fairly recent to open water. And the lady called me up afterwards, and she said, Maureen is kind of just like me. She's just a few years ahead of me, and what I learned from her in that lunch is just unbelievable. And those are some examples of mentoring.
Sorry, just so everybody's clear, a marathon swim as defined by this program is how it's defined elsewhere, and that's 10 kilometers or greater. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And are there any restrictions as to needs to be in a channel, needs to be without a wetsuit, any restrictions?
There's no restrictions. Most of the mentors are probably coming from the non-wetsuit side of the sport. But I don't yet have any mentors who are militant about that. And the call for mentors has been unbelievably successful. So if you only speak Romanian, we have a Romanian mentor. If you only speak Arabic, we have an Arabic mentor. If you're from Mexico, we have a mentor in Mexico. So what we've done is we've said mentors aren't supposed to charge. And we've given some examples of what mentors do and they don't do. So for example, kind of tongue in cheek, mentors don't do hypnotherapy over Zoom. If you want hypnotherapy, go pay somebody locally to do hypnotherapy. I don't know if people do it over Zoom, who knows. So the mentor is somebody that you call up, before your big swim, and you say, look, I just want to run through my kind of mental checklist. Here's what I have in place. And oh, by the way, I just bought some seasickness tablets in case I need them. And the mentor is supposed to say, hang on a minute. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Have you ever used these tablets before? Go, no, I just bought them this morning at the chemist. Okay, take the tablets and either throw them away or put them in a drawer for later. You do not put anything in your mouth that you haven't trained with.
Yeah. And when you first shared with me the volunteer mentors, it was a healthy list. But now I look at the list. I mean, it's massive. I mean, this outpouring of hospitality, warmth, volunteer is overwhelming.
So we had one of the volunteers was a guy named Carl Richards, who based in London, swam the English Channel, and his kind of claim to fame is he believes he's the first black man with 2 nipple rings ever to swim the English Channel. And Carl's open waterpedia page was pretty short, so I asked him to help me beef it up a little bit. And Carl came back with something, and he said, look, he said he was 13 hours something, a time that shocked him and shocked the world. And he said, when he was training, titans of the sport put so much love and care into advising him and mentoring him that he'd be only delighted to give a little bit back. I put the word out, and you're not kidding. The responses have come in from all over the place. I've turned down a few who are incredibly well-meaning, but the ones I've turned down are already in some sort of commercial business in the open water business. So they're coaching or they're running camps for personal profit. And I just said, I just want money to be completely out of this. I don't want there to be a hint of it.
Yeah. And then how do people reach out to these mentors?
Okay, so on the Open Waterpedia page, and Steve, I'm sure you'll clip that onto this article. There's a whole lot of names, and each name has a country or a kind of a language. So we say that Michael Ventry now lives in Cork, Ireland, but he's from Botswana. We have Sophie from Greece who speaks Greek. So I know there's a lot of names, but what I want people to do is I want people to go through them. I want them to try to recognize some names. They can click on it and go to the Open Waterpedia page. And then I want them to try to find the best match for who they are. So if you're a 45-year-old female from the United States and you just got into open water swimming and you're worried about, maybe you're a bit kind of not 21 years old anymore, you'll quickly stumble across Polly Yankowskis and Pat Gallant-Charette, sorry, who are 2 superstar ladies who started over the age of 40 and seriously got into the sport. If what you want to do is you ultimately want to do the Ocean Sevens, there's a number of Ocean 7 swimmers there. And they're going to tell you it isn't cheap. It can't be done in 3 years anymore. And you better have a couple of friends that want to travel the world with you because, having a smiling face on that boat is probably worth a lot. So you're not supposed to just, touch a formula and it pops out at you. There's a whole bunch of people there. It's not online dating, but, look at the profiles try to find somebody that's a good match for you. And there's, swimmers from all over the world, different languages, different places.
Yeah. And when I look at the list, I mean, everybody there is giving. Everybody there really wants to give back to the sport. And I know we all often say that, give back to the sport, but these are literally people who they'll wrap their own towel around you if you're shivering. And so, I mean, if anybody is interested in this, they want to be mentored, do not feel any sense of hesitation when reaching out to people. Is that a correct assessment?
I think that's correct. The other thing is be careful that the mentor may pass you off. So if you are that 45-year-old woman that's coming to me and you're based in New Hampshire, I'm going to be telling you about Paula and Pat who live in adjoining states, and I'm going to say, look, I'm happy to help, but they're going to be so much better placed to do that. And the other thing is, you might use a mentor 1 year for something and get a different mentor for something else. Going from 5 kilometers to 10 kilometers is tough. It typically involves feeding. And we can put you together with a swimmer that's been through 35 different feeding routines before they finally stop throwing up. That's not necessarily me, but I know some people who have been through those things. Or if you need a shoulder operation, we can find somebody that's had 3 shoulder operations that still swims, and they can tell you how they recovered. It's not me.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So hopefully this program will continue to grow. I mean, it's grown in the 1 week or less than 1 week that it's gone from proposal to conception to execution. So I want to thank you and Sue who put forward the idea, and let's help this whole program blossom.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.